And then winger, so 4 or 5 guys, let's say. Obviously, Pulisic, Timmy Weah if he's healthy. And then if we're counting Reyna and Aronson as wingers, I think those would be your main four. And then if you're taking any extra guys there, then you're talking about guys like Jordan Morris, Paul Arriola. So how do you see that position shaking up?
So, yeah, I think Christian Pulisic is locked in on that left-hand side. He still has to be healthy, and that's a question, but I think he's locked in. And it's not like Christian Pulisic started every single game during qualifying, but I think for what he is and what Gregg Berhalter wants, I think that's going to happen unless he is injured. I mentioned, Gio Reyna and Brendan Aronson, who, yes, they could play false nines or they could play one of those threes and stuff like that. For our purposes right now, we're talking about, the winger. I think, and we're going to do, midfields and defenders and goalkeepers later on, but when it comes to who benefited maybe the most out of that last window that we know was not very good, I think Mosse was the number one because he was not there, and I think he showed how valuable he is. But I also think Tim Weah really showed that he is, I still think, the most consistent winger in terms of being a classic winger with the type of speed to get behind the defense, to scare other teams, and to consistently take players on one-on-one using that speed, as opposed to Christian Pulisic, who loves to drift inside, take on multiple players, yes, but he doesn't have that sheer outright winger speed that you have to worry about if you're playing in a back four, that left back that is going to go up against him. So absolutely for me, I think that Christian Pulisic is going to be there, Gio Reyna is going to be there, Brendan Aronson is going to be there, and Tim Weah are going to be there. I think one of Arriola and Jordan Morris are going to be there. Paul Arriola is kind of a winger, and that's what you've seen him. I do think that Gregg Berhalter likes him, and I think Jordan Morris is going to be a real question because the Jordan Morris that I have, and I think that Gregg Berhalter has, and a lot of people have, has still not really shown up in recent times for either club or country. And if that Jordan Morris doesn't exist anymore, then he is of much less value and certainly not on the plane when it comes to Qatar. But if there is a glimmer of that Jordan Morris still in existence, I think it's enough to put him on the plane where coming off of the bench, he provides a very different type of look on that off wing, if you will, playing on that left-hand side, even though he's so right-footed and dropping his shoulder, getting around people. The problem is we haven't seen enough of that, and I'm not sure it still exists given the injuries that he's come off of.
Yeah, there's a lot of fretting about Pulisic's minutes, Gio Reyna's minutes. Timmy Weah is a guy that we don't talk about as much, but he also had a pretty serious injury, was out a while. He's just come back. He did have 2 assists in the game, but he's not starting for Lille. So he's somebody that is going to arrive at the World Cup not having played that much this season, and you're going to hope that he can sort of flip that switch. Any concern about that?
Wait, who?
Timmy Weah.
No, I think he's going to be fine. Yeah, I mean, I think that people will rise to the occasion of the World Cup. And again, I think we put so much weight and kind of carry over so much of that baggage of what the player is doing from a club perspective, and it doesn't all. A lot of times it doesn't translate. I think Tim Weah is going to be fine from a physical perspective, and I think. I talked about putting Brendan Aronson possibly in that position and putting Tim Weah in a different position. It would be interesting, and I'd really struggle if all I could do was either play Tim Weah or Brendan Aronson on that right-hand side in the top 3, who I would go with, because I feel like I got to get Brendan Aronson on the field. But if the only place that I can get him is on that right-hand side, and maybe this last window changed the way that I think about Tim Weah, it's really hard for me to take Tim Weah out.
And winger position, we talked about the problems at center forward. This is a strength. I mean, I know we're worried about some of these guys, their health and their, the fact that they're not playing regularly for their clubs.
They
But
don't all play the same way, but they all provide a real
value.
value.
Take a step back, just in terms of pedigree. That quartet of Pulisic, Reyna, Aronson, and Weah is fantastic.
It's very nice. It's very nice going forward.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops every week. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.